Hey everybody, Candace here with Greener Farms DIY, and I am going to be doing this embroidery over an iron-on that's currently there on this jacket for one of my coworkers. She's on the management team with me and she loved what I did for my jacket, so I decided when she asked so nicely I would go ahead and do her jacket. So, the biggest thing is making sure that you're stable in your hoop. When you're doing something like this, notice this has a zipper on the back, so part of this upper zipper panel is going to be inoperable, but that's fine. I kicked the zipper all the way down to the bottom. And the first challenging part is making sure you get a good stabilization, in your hoop. And so you need to kind of go around it and see where you want to actually hoop it, how you want to hoop it. And then you have to get your hoop set to be able to do it, so you want to get your hoop kind of let out. I think that's letting it out. That looks like it might be. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's making it bigger. Perfect. And so what we do is we put some stabilizer down. So I'm just going to throw some stabilizer in there. And then I put my jacket in there. And then I use positioning in the actual machine to make sure that it's going to be where I want it. And see, the zipper's getting in the way, so what I'll probably do is turn the jacket. Let me get the hood off of it, because that's just in my way. And I'll probably hoop it this way. So that way I can get all of this kind of tucked down nicely. So you have to be somewhat patient when you're hooping things. All right. See if I made this big enough to handle all of this. Nope. So I think the zipper is going to pose a problem. So what I'm probably going to do is just float it on top. And these are all the steps that you guys would work through as you're trying to figure out how you want to do your project. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this back up. And this means I'm floating because of that zipper. Now, you know me, I don't like to float things, but I do float on occasion. So we are in there nice and tight. All right. Now, when you're working with your hoops, you want to make sure your hoop is pushed all the way up on the collar, okay? So you see how my hoop is all the way up on the collar. The reason why is you don't want this outer hoop and the inner ring to be even. They're usually designed to push all the way up. All right, so we're tightly hooped in there. Now, the next thing is how do I want to have it on the machine? Knowing I have a zipper in here, I'm going to kick that puppy all the way down. I'm going to look at this and say, yeah, that's probably a good position for it. And you can do one of two things. You can base spray it with base spray, or you can pin it at this point, and I'm looking for my pins, which I found my pins. I'm going to pin it. So because I have that zipper and I have the mesh inside there, so I'm just going to go around and I'm going to start pinning this into my hoop. And then I'm going to put it into my machine. Now I'm hooped very tightly, so I'm not hurting the stabilizer below it. And you're going to need to get one way over here. You don't want to be in the stitching area, so let me try and get that through. Okay, perfect. You're just going to repeat all the way around. You're going to get it nice and secure. All right, so I went ahead and put it in the machine, and I did my preview, which just kind of went around to show me where it's going to stitch at. And I also just made sure that it wasn't going to hit anywhere that I didn't want it to hit. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to stitch this out. And it's going to go through and start to stitch the underlay and then continue forward in the design. Alright, so it's working on all the underlay right now, and it's just doing a full blackout under the design for the underlay. It's really more so to cover all of this up, and you do have a level of babysitting you have to do when you're doing basically a stitch over design where you're trying to cover something to make sure everything's coming out just fine, but we'll let this continue to go. Alright, I'm about 20 minutes into this stitch out right now. This is the blackout of the back side of the design, so then all the elements will stitch on top of this. This is covering that white iron-on very nicely, and now it's going to move on to the other elements within the design. And so you can see how everything kind of moves on this quilt top. I have an actual quilt top for my machine. And I heard the needle on that one. So the thread snapped, which is no big deal. We're just going to simply restring it and go from there. So multi-needles are kind of fun. You can always hear them, you know, when they're not running right or when it's about ready to mess up. And I don't thread things well being watched on camera, but I will try and get through this. So you feed it through the little hole, you make sure that everything's in its track. You always back up your stitches, you know, however many you counted, you know, that it kind of messed up, and then you continue on. So let me get that back up in its little arm. All right. Perfect, now it's ready to go again. Alright, so now it's going to go ahead and do the stitching. I backed up a little too far, but it's just going to tie off, which is fine. Then we'll move on to the white. And it will continue to stitch out all the white elements, which is going to be the fairy, and then the ferry boat, and then it'll move on to the words. Alright, it is done. 52 minutes. Looks great. I'm going to go through and trim some of these threads that are right there. But I think we got ourselves a beautiful design. It just needs to have some trimming, which all of you are very familiar with, but that is how you cover up an iron-on that's currently there. Is you just design a design to go over it. Now, I did use a really good stabilizer on the back. This is by Filtech stabilizer cutaway, and it is just, it's fantastic. I actually use it for like 90% of my products, and I used black Filtech bobbin. So I'm really big into USA made. This is a USA made stabilizer. This is USA made bobbin thread, and I have USA made glide thread that goes in it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll get this video uploaded here in a few minutes.